Welcome to Give Me Credit. Hi, I'm JS Waldo, and as always, I am here with our credit expert guru, John Mackey. Good morning,
Hi
John.
guys. Good morning. How are you?
Today we have another guest, and we're going to be talking with our guest. Hi, Em.
Hello.
Welcome. Thank you for coming on. We appreciate it.
Yes, thank you for having me.
We are going to be talking about life and debt and how it works and how it happens. We're always talking about credit and we're always talking about ways to help yourself and protect yourself. But I think it's important that we always remember that just because you have debt and just because you have collections or issues or anything like that, that doesn't make you less of a human. You are human. So we wanted to talk to someone that we really admire. We really have a lot of empathy with, and she was so gracious to come here today and share her story. So, Em, we're going to get right into it. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you.
Awesome. We're going to start kind of at the beginning, since seems like a weird way to go here, but I feel like, we talk a lot about financial education. We're always trying to provide that. So let's talk about first, let's go to the very beginning. Let's just kind of walk me through what life looked like growing up for you. And then what I'm talking about is things like, did you grow up in an urban setting, suburban, rural? Tell me about your growing up. What's your household look like?
I did grow up in Minneapolis, Minneapolis Brooklyn Center, so I guess kind of a little bit of both urban and city. My parents were divorced pretty young. My mom worked full time, so I actually grew up spending a lot of time with my neighbors who
Oh,
I would go to their house before school and after school till my mom got home from work. And they were married and had three kids, so that was kind of like my second family. Um, but until my mom got remarried when I was maybe 7 or 8 or so, it was mainly just my mom and I.
did how was it financially? I was a single mom for a long time. How was it for you?
Yeah. It was, I wouldn't say like, I never felt like it was a struggle for us to get by, but I definitely felt things like, um, like I remember the day my mom came to me and said, "Do you want a pair of Guess jeans?" Because, I didn't get the brand names and stuff all the
Mhm.
time like the other kids. So, but I never felt like I was lacking for, clothes in general or food or anything like that. My mom actually has a lot of pride and turned down child support from my dad. So just wanted to get by on her own. So yeah.
That's lovely. Did your mom ever like talk to you financially about anything?
Um, when I was very young, I don't remember like really conversations about it, but I do feel like I kind of learned a lot. Like I got an allowance. Back in the day, it was I'm older, so it was $2. I got $2 for my allowance, and I could spend $1, and then I had to save $1.
Oh, that's cool.
So I kind of like, I guess, learned things that way. When I was younger. Once I got older and kind of got my first job and things, then my mom and my dad both really taught me a lot. I feel like I probably got a lot more information and skills than the average person.
When do you remember like learning about or even hearing about it, credit and credit scores, things like that?
Oh, that's a good question. I'm not even sure.
Well, so like when your parents were talking to you, that's not a part of it. They were talking more about budgeting and handling your money. Did
Yeah.
you kind of learn about that the hard way, just through life?
Um, no, it was more things like I remember, like besides the allowance, what my dad would do a lot was, well, and my mom actually too, like, I remember it with a vacation we went on, and with my first two cars, like they both did a thing with me where whatever I would save, they would put in like an equal amount. So I remember like learning the value of a dollar and earning and things like that. But then once I got my first job and my own money, my dad like had me like when I would pay like a credit card bill, he would teach me to write down on the statement, paid, X amount of dollars on this date with check number, blah, blah, blah. And he drilled into my head about filing and keeping things for so many years. And that's kind of the part of it that they really taught me a lot about.
That's
I
really cool.
remember I actually worked in credit once I started working and stuff. And I prior to that, I can't, obviously I knew what credit was, but I can't even remember how I learned about like credit reporting and things.
Well, you took away my first question because of my question was going to be, what do you think credit actually was back then?
Yeah, I
Oh,
don't.
credit cards. So you understand
Yeah.
that part.
Well, you know what? Actually, I do remember talk about like building credit. I don't think I
Oh,
really knew the part about like, if you miss payments and things like that, but maybe just because I was taught just don't miss payments. But I do remember like when I was talking about going to college and things, trying to build credit for, being able to get a car or a house or whatever someday. So that part of it, I remember learning about, but not, I guess, really like the bad parts of what can go wrong.
do you feel like you were prepared, or were you just trying to figure it out as you went?
I feel like I was pretty prepared, but now that I'm thinking about it, I don't know if I really knew the details as much as just being taught in general how to be financially
Sure,
responsible. So
sure,
maybe I just
Yeah.
didn't worry about the details.
sure. Did anybody ever explain how credit reports or scoring really work?
That when I got my first job, that was working in credit. That's where I really learned a lot about it.
What was your
Um,
first job? Tell me about that.
it was so my first job was well, I'm sorry, it wasn't my first job, but
That's okay. It
one
was
of my
one of
first
your
jobs
earlier jobs.
was for a credit card company. And I just was in customer service, but I eventually moved up into a department that dealt with credit. So if somebody had like a dispute on their credit card, we researched that, but then we also dealt directly with the three major credit bureaus. Like when people were trying to get a loan of some kind, a house or something, if they were getting like a high interest rate or something, they would call us to see, can you remove this late or this, 90-day late on my credit report or whatever. So that was actually part of my job for a long time. So that's kind of where I learned the real details about how that works and how it can or cannot be changed, and what if there's errors with it, and what is considered like 30 days late or 90 days late, things like that. So yeah, I think I knew the basics before that job, but I didn't really fully understand until I got that job.
That's really cool. You got a very unique perspective there.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure.
absolutely.
For sure.
When when did things shift for you financially?
I would say it was around the time um I bought my first house, um and got married probably within a year after buying the house. And I knew pretty quickly I wanted to start having a family. We bought a house. My ex wasn't the best with money. Um, and so being with him kind of started um, a little bit of, I mean, I'm not going to blame it on him. But he came with some financial issues. And so it was a combination of buying a house it wasn't really a fixer upper, but it definitely needed a lot of updating. And we were excited. So, we put a lot of money into that. I knew I wanted to start a family right away. And I knew I wanted to be a stay-at-home mom, at least for the first year with my kids. That was something that was important to me. On top of the fact that daycare was just, I'm sure it still is, but it was crazy expensive. Like you could almost work full time and put your kid in daycare and have the same amount of money you would have if you didn't work and didn't put them in daycare. So
That's right. Still astronomical today.
yeah, so that kind of was what started kind of the biggest part, I think, of the problem is realizing, you know, we've got all these bills from things we've done to the house, but also it's really important to me to start a family and be home at least for a little while with them. And yeah.
How did that feel to you? How did that feel when you realized that things were maybe kind of things were starting to get stretched beyond your comfort level? How did that feel?
It was really frustrating, very hard. It was very disappointing because I just, you know, I grew up with my grandparents being stay-at-home moms, and they would do daycare for my mom. You know, they would take care of me sometimes while my mom always had to work full time. And it just felt really weird that just we were living in a time where people just couldn't afford to stay home with their kids and raise them on their own, really, if they wanted to. It was, and we weren't even, what was that?
Your options were gone.
Yeah, and we weren't even living like extravagant lives or anything. Like I kind of always, because of the way I was brought up, have kind of always been somewhat of a penny pincher. So it's not like we were, you know, blowing money left and right, and still it just was, you know, it didn't seem attainable, and it was very sad and frustrating.
Yeah,
Can you give me an idea as to the time frame we're talking about? Early 2000s?
We bought the house in 99, and I had my first I have 3 kids, and I had the first one in 2002. So it was kind of between those years.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
When you first realized, I shouldn't really even say realized because you were living it. You literally, you used a great phrase, and you said it felt like it was not attainable and not being the stereotypical dream, right? Like we want to be able to be with our children, but you know, I myself had to go back to work at 4 weeks after both of my daughters.
Okay.
So I understand what you're saying by that. I just kind of wanted to put a little clarity on that.
Yeah.
When you first saw your credit situation, when you first were in it, you started to feel that crunch, you know, you started to feel that stress, that frustration, as you called it. What went through your mind? Like, did you feel like you had to solve it? Or did you feel like this is just the way it's going to be?
I definitely felt like I wanted to try to solve it. I know we had talked well in advance of, you know, what to do when we got to the point where we needed money. So we already had made up the decision that either when I was ready to go back to work or when I had to go back to work, that I would get a job somewhere working nights, and just my husband would come home, take care of the kids, and I would go off to work. So that way I was, you know, adding income, but we weren't putting the kids in daycare and then losing some of that income. And also I just felt like I really wanted a fresh start. Like I felt like we could maybe do it if we just had a fresh start without the debt from, you know, the new siding on the house and the new deck whatever, all that. So then that's when we kind of started considering bankruptcy. And if I remember right, it was kind of a period of time where I don't know if I was just learning about it or if more people were doing it at the time. I guess I can't remember what things were like then. But anyways, that I realized
definitely more people were speaking more openly about it at that point.
Okay. Yeah, because I had never really thought of that as an option or anything. And all of a sudden I thought, well, you know, other people are doing it. Not that like a jump on the train kind of thing, but maybe like a less shameful feeling about it if I did do it, you know, or less,
you were less inhibited.
guilt.
Yeah. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. I get exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
And I really like your approach. You totally took an informed, responsible approach there. I can't tell you how many people I knew in the exact same situation where one worked during the day and one worked at night.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah,
And then
there
you
are a
never
lot
see
of
your
people
spouse,
think
so that's not even a good solution either, but it's, kind of what we chose is the lesser of the choices, or the best of
Right.
the choices we had.
right.
Yeah.
I'm going to shift a little bit to right now. And how many negative or derogatory items are you dealing with right now?
Um, I have two credit cards. Um, I'm trying to think. Well, I'm pretty sure it's two. That are I don't know what I'm a little bit confused because I haven't quite got the experience I thought I would get if they went by the wayside, but that I think are probably charged off now. Well, they would have to be charged off with what I know from my job, my old job. So,
Okay, okay.
everything else I have, like late payment history. I haven't checked my credit report in a while because,
You led right into my next question.
oh, yeah, I'm afraid to look because I know it's bad. I was like in my notes on my phone, I have a list of like I would check monthly and note what my credit score was. So I like to watch it, after the first time I got in trouble, back, around the time when we bought the house. I like to keep track of it and, make sure everything's correct and watch the number go up after something bad has happened. But now I just know it's bad and it stresses me out when I think about it. So I've kind of ignored it. But I know I do have late payment history. Sorry, my dog. I know I do have late payment history, but I did, for the most part, do a good job of keeping in contact with the creditors and things, and like my
Oh, that's
mortgage.
good.
So they,
Mm.
put me on different payment plans and stuff. So I didn't have to worry about losing my house and things, but I'm not 100% sure how that shows up on my credit report. And I know
Okay,
I should check, it
so
just stresses me
you
out.
still have your home then?
I do, yeah. I have actually been very fortunate, very surprised actually with how willing they've been to work with me.
That's lovely though. I think that's important. I'm glad to hear that because, it's a fear. It's a fear of so many people. What about my home?
Yeah, and I shouldn't say it wasn't always like that, but just like in the past, um, few years, when life got tough for pretty much everyone, that's when I saw a change. When they definitely started to be more willing to work with me than what I remember in, around the 2000s.
So I'm gonna take another step back here. I know we jumped forward, but we're talking about now. So to fill a gap, you're divorced, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay. And you have been raising your children. And if I understand your current situation correctly, one of the issues comes down to and John, you and I have spoken about this many times,
Yeah.
the largest collector there is out there, medical.
Yes.
Can you tell us a little bit about that? You don't have to go into details about your medical. That's not what I'm asking. I'm thinking more along the lines of missed work and what you've dealt with and how that's gone for you.
Yeah. That was definitely part of an issue. I do have to say, and I'm very grateful that don't have, I didn't end up with a lot of medical bills because of some medical issues that I've had. Mainly because of my financial situation, I got put on like the state insurance or whatever.
Mhm.
And that was actually, like I sometimes say, I'm thankful for being broke because that kind of saved me. But that being said, I did, with having a few surgeries over the years and things like that, I did miss like maybe 8, 3 months, maybe 2 to 3 months of work each time. So, and no, um, like at the time, our state didn't have any sort of short-term disability. My job didn't offer it. And I didn't have like long-term disability or anything. So it was all unpaid each time I was there. So that, as far as lost income, that definitely had an effect on me.
Sure, sure. I want to, because my forte is credit reporting, and debt collections. What you had mentioned before that you haven't pulled your credit report in a while because you don't want to know, but in reality, you do know.
Yeah.
But you don't want it. What is it about reading a credit report that would make you feel uncomfortable, knowing what the status is, or would you rather be surprised when the debt collector calls? Does that make
I
sense?
Yeah, I think I understand what you're asking, and it's kind of like it's just something that stresses me out, and I tend to get overwhelmed easy, and I tend to just avoid things that stress me out. But also, I've always been a very proactive person, and like I want to fix things and stuff. So I feel like the instant I look at it, there's going to be issues, and I'm going to want to deal with it and fix it. Or if there's like an error, I want to figure that out. And then all of a sudden I feel like, oh, that's just more stress, more things to do. And I feel like I can't just look at it and be like, well, that's it. I always have like this need to try to improve things or fix things.
Sure.
Well, I mean, that makes perfect sense, especially since how you were raised, which was to handle everything responsibly, which you have tried to do. You've tried to
Yeah.
do that through the whole thing. I remember reading that you even called your creditors.
Hmm.
Right.
Yeah, quite a bit
Tell me how
actually.
that was.
Yeah. Um, it was it was a little surprising to me actually. I didn't even That was one thing I didn't realize, that they would just be willing to put you like on a temporary payment plan. Like they all kind of would ask, um, is it due to medical, or is it due to, a life change, or they'd want to know like a vague idea of what the situation was. And I think maybe, I don't know if they had different rules on how they would handle it based on that, but for the most part, they all were willing to work with me for at least up to 3 months. And then they would say, with either like lower payments, or even maybe skipping a month or something, and then you'd have to
Yeah.
start paying again, or else just contact them again to let them know where you're at. I was actually surprised. I knew I couldn't afford to pay everything, but I also knew I wanted to eventually. Like I didn't just want them to write off my debt and my credits ruined. Like I wanted to pay. I just needed more time to get like out of, back to work, out of my issues from the medical, or to get that next tax refund that I can use to help pay things. And
Right.
I just needed more time. So I was surprised at how willing they were to work. The credit cards for a few months, the mortgage, like I said, that was very surprising, because just within the last few years, they worked with me more than I expected them to. Was actually a little shocking.
Yeah, we've actually spoken with lenders, and it's been my experience also. I'm from the mortgage side. Um, we'd much rather work with you because it costs a lot of money to foreclose or collect. It's actually
Yeah.
quite expensive. So if we can possibly work with you, we want to. But you're talking about credit cards now. You're talking about big banks, and that's different.
Yes.
How did it feel to you? And this is more of a personal question, but you are such a reasonable person. How did it feel to you? What gave you the courage to pick up the phone and call them?
Um, I think it was just my own pressure of feeling like I don't want to get in trouble, like guilt, I think, is a lot to do with it. Um, and also like, So I did also, for a short period of time when I was working at night, while my husband was home with the kids, I did part-time collections for the same company that I worked with, the credit bureau reporting and things like that. So I knew, kind of what that was like, and I didn't want, I'm sorry, I went, what was the question?
No,
My
you're
brain
actually
went too
doing.
far ahead of me.
No, you're doing a great job. I think it's so interesting that you actually did a part-time job as in collections. That gave you so much more empathy, and that actually I think probably answers the question. The question was, how did you come up with the courage to make that call? It's
Oh,
because
yeah.
you had the knowledge.
Yes.
You were already informed just from your past experiences. Good for you. I'm very proud to hear that that takes so much courage. We've talked about it numerous times on this podcast of picking up the phone, and you did that. So good for you.
which is
Yeah.
not a normal thing to do. I
It's
mean,
not.
the
It's
normal
not.
person, I don't want to say normal because you're not abnormal, but the normal
Average.
structure would
Mhm.
be just to ignore it and bury their head in the sand. And that's what
Yeah.
most people do. And it goes at that point from a first party debt collection to a third party debt collection, meaning they've sold the debt and then you got a different mindset with who's collecting on that debt. Instead of the creditor who wants to work with you, doesn't want to sell the debt because it costs them money to do
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
Then they sell it to a debt collector and the debt collector calls. Then their game plan is a whole lot different than a first party debt collector. And you experienced it as a first party debt collector. Uh,
Yeah.
so I
And
think that gave you a real strength in
it
knowing
did.
what to do.
Yeah, and that's kind of, I think, where I was going with my thought is I did, uh, from knowing what my job was, and we had a lot of kind of free reign because the credit card company I worked for was, I think they call it proprietary, like the company that the card is for is the company that's collecting. So way in the beginning when you're just like 1 to
Right,
3 months past due.
right.
So um, I knew from my job that if people ignored you or like tried to put the blame on you and say, like they'd say, well, I didn't get a statement or whatever. Whereas if they would, we weren't as willing to work with them and the way we were trained as if they say, oh, I'm sorry, I was sick or this happened and I want to pay or whatever. We kind of were trained and a lot of it was up to us, but I knew people were more willing to work with you, at least in that beginning phase. If you were just honest and explain to them you're trying to pay, you just maybe can't right now. So that's kind of what made me reach out to everyone in my own situation.
Okay. To move forward here,
Mhm.
what you've got the path forward and you're kind of in the middle of this. If do you look ahead and say, okay, what happens next? Or are you just right now trying to live for today?
Um, Kind of a little bit of both. I feel like I sort of always kind of have a plan of how do I get through things right now and what do I have to do right now to kind of keep things going. And then I also do look ahead into the future and think, like I said, I would get a tax refund every year and I'd look ahead and say, well, and that's one of the things I would tell the creditors, I can get caught up once I get that tax refund, or maybe when my kids are, I had a lot of when I worked from home for a lot of years, and I think, once the kids don't need me home with them all the time, I can get a better job, make more money, maybe go back to school, things like that. So I kind of have always thought about short term and long term at the same time.
Sure.
So, so you feel, let's talk about today. Here we are, 2026. Are you getting collection calls?
Currently, I am not.
Why do you think that is?
That's a good question. I am actually a little I'm wondering about that myself. I shouldn't say no collections. Um, I do occasionally get behind on my utilities, and that's kind of intentional because I have contacted them and they tell me, just it's not a big deal. Like they'll work with you. It's not going to affect your credit. Like they tell me things like that. So those are usually the bills I pay last. And they definitely, they'll call me or they'll um, leave a note on your door or whatever.
Yeah.
But the credit cards, I was getting collections calls and they did stop like when I was on payment plans with them, they stopped the collection calls. And then I sort of stopped staying in touch with them during around a time that was another surgery and a stressful time medically for me. That kind of all went by the wayside, and I sort of lost track of time and how long it had been since I paid this and that. And at some point, I do remember getting a letter in the mail from, it was like an attorney, a creditor, or a credit attorney or something like that. Like it had, but I just remember the one letter, and I know that those accounts have to be charged off, but I'm not getting anything in the mail or phone calls. And I know that they have all my information. So I'm not quite sure why. And I'm hoping that means that they're still with the companies I made the debt with, and I can maybe somehow, I don't know. I know you can like settle or do things to make the charge off not look quite as bad or show that it's paid, even though it was charged off, things like that. But I am a little bit confused that I'm not getting all the collection calls and things.
Yeah, I can understand that. So is your thought process, well, you've told us you're afraid to pull your credit report.
Yes.
Perfectly normal, by the way. We hear that a lot. We see that a lot. That is a very, it's a scary thing. It's a scary thing to face it head on. But today, to move forward, what are you thinking? What are you thinking you want to do?
Yeah. I know I do need to check that. I also went through a mass layoff and now I have a newer job.
Mhm.
So I'm at the point right now where I'm trying to fix everything again. Kind of like I feel like I've been through this sort of fix it process a few times in my life now with my finances. But yeah,
That's
so
okay.
that is kind of on my to-do list. I know I want to check that. I was signed up for a while with one of the major credit bureaus, Experian. I think that once a month would send me a little report, and I'd have to, click on it to see the full stuff, but they would have my credit score there. But yeah, like right now I'm sort of in that fix it phase where I'm still playing catch up, so I can't quite get caught up yet, but I'm in the process of it. So I do want to contact those creditors and find out what's going on with those and what I can do to somehow make it more or less bad, I guess, than if I would just forget it existed because I'm not getting phone calls because I know it's out there. I know it wasn't just forgotten about. But
Well, I like what you said earlier, though. You talked about priorities. Can you tell me what is your priorities when it comes to when it's time to sit down and pay your bills? Tell
yeah.
me your priorities. What order do you go?
Um so my my priority is just to stay where I'm at with my mortgage.
Mhm.
I had gone through like a modification, I believe they call it.
Yeah,
So
that's exactly what they call it. Mhm.
yeah. So now it's just like a regular mortgage, and I didn't manage to get a month behind. So that's always my priority. I don't want to mess up my home. I am living in a small home, thankfully, through my divorce. We didn't get a bigger home, during my marriage, so that I can afford to stay here. So that's my priority. Getting caught up on all my, like I know I'm behind on like the city utilities. They
Mhm.
don't ever contact me about being late, which makes me care less about it. And I know that sounds awful, but you tend to be most concerned about who's going to what can destroy your credit and what can, you don't want to lose your house. So you want to pay your mortgage. So
Yeah, absolutely.
I want to get caught up on those. My third step would be to find out what's going on with those credit cards that I haven't paid in quite some time that should be charged off by now. And then after that, just being able to make ends meet without having to worry about, oh, maybe I can't pay this bill this month, or maybe I'll have to contact them again to get put on a payment plan. Like, I just want to be able to at least I'd like to do better than make ends meet, but I'd like to at least make ends meet.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah. And now to kind of end this, we've certainly gone way over, and we love that fact because you're so willing to share with us your financial life or a small snippet of it. I think this is very advantageous for anybody listening as to how you've dealt with your problem and help those that maybe haven't done it as well as you have. Are you open to guidance or doing anything differently moving forward?
Oh yeah, I'm always open to anything. I feel like I've been responsible for everything for the most part, but I also feel like um, uh, I do have some shame and guilt that goes along with it. So I am always looking for different ways to, different things I can learn about to maybe help or not get into trouble next time, or ways to, better ways to heal things. You know what I mean? Like
Sure.
fix things.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you're working again
Yeah.
and you're taking those steps forward and you're doing the best you can. Um, what happens next for you?
As far as what?
As far as your plan, so you say you want to do this, and then you're going to do this,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and then you're going to do this. Where are you at in your plan?
Yep. So, well, actually, just last night I filed my taxes. so,
Good.
so I'm expecting a refund, and so that's whenever. I don't have like an estimated date yet, but that's money that I'm going to use to get caught up on the different things that I'm behind on currently. And then from there, just I'm making more money at this job than I was at my last job, so I'm hoping that will help me um, stay ahead of things a little bit. One thing that I have been working on hard over the last year and a half or so, um, and I won't get into it because whole different subject, but I've been doing some boycotting and things which have made me more aware of spending, even though I felt like I was being really good at penny pinching and things like that. I definitely have a new and better perspective of how I'm spending my money and what I actually do need and don't need and things like that, which is kind of part of my trying to fix my financial situation. And
Your journey.
my journey. Yep.
Yeah, I love that. Well, if anybody can guide you, it would be our lovely credit guru, John. So
Yeah. Yes, for sure.
I'm happy that he's in your corner and knows you. I love that you're open to that. I think you're doing everything right, but most importantly, you're you're working your way through it. You know what you need to do. So I'm going to ask you, as a personal favor to me, although you don't really know me, please pull your credit report. Please do the free credit report at annualcreditreport.com. Get all
Yes.
3 bureaus, and let's just face this head on, as scary as it is.
Yes.
Because it's the only way. It's the only way. You're doing everything that you can, and you won't be able to fix it all at once. And that's
Yeah.
okay. That's okay. But at least you'll know, because you have these goals, right? You have a really good laid out plan. You have these goals, but you can't get there if you don't know what you have to tackle, It's like trying to run a
Yes.
marathon if you don't know if it's going to be flat, if there's going to be hills.
Yeah.
So how do you
I know.
train?
I know in my head that is very good advice. Yes.
Well,
Yeah.
luckily you do have John there to help you.
Yeah, and yeah, I've learned quite a few things. I feel like I know a lot, and he's taught me some things that I didn't even know with as much as I thought I knew. So yeah, that's definitely awesome that I discovered him.
Well, we are going to wrap this up, but again, the whole point of today was to show everybody that you're not alone. We're all struggling in one way or another, and you just are so gracious to come on here and share your story. And really do appreciate that. Prioritizing caring for your family over a credit card, that's a good decision.
Yeah.
That's a
Yeah.
good decision. And too many people just don't know the way to make those decisions. And you used some words today. You had a little shame and you have some grief about that. And I totally understand. And I think that many people can resonate with that. And that's
Yeah.
why we're talking about it.
Yeah.
So thank you so much for coming and talking about it.
Yeah. Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed
Thanks,
this.
Sam. I appreciate it. Thank you very much. You've been marvelous.
Yes, you
Fantastic.
have. You really have. This has been Give Me Credit. Again, I'm J.S. Waldo from Mortgage Lending Explained. You can find me on Substack. And this is John Mackey, our credit guru. And you can find him, Credit Genius, on Substack. Remember, we are here to answer your questions, help you through. As you can see, the entire point is we're all human. We're all making our way through this. We're here to help and guide as much as we possibly can. If you have a topic you're interested in, please feel free. Send us questions. Give us ideas. We want to cover it for you. You're the one living this. We're here for you. And as always, we invite you to subscribe. We invite you to like. We invite you to follow on whatever platform you are following us on. We're on, happy to tell you now, we're not just on Substack. We are also on YouTube. We've been there for a while, and Apple Podcast, Spotify. We are here for you. Please follow along. And Em, again, thank you so much.
Thank you.
And I hope everybody has a lovely day.
Thanks. Have a good one.
Bye.